Here, and so today we're going to be talking about Unit 3 Notes 2, Multiplying Monomials. Yesterday we went over terms for polynomials. Poly means many, so many terms. Well, today we're talking about monomials, so we're really going to have one term. So we're taking basically two one terms and multiplying together. So let's take a look at some general rules of exponents. These are some things you need to know. So let's take a look at this. First of all, when you are multiplying like bases, you need to add the exponents. So if we had something like a to the 6th times a to the 3rd, so what we would do then is we would add the two little exponents, those numbers up there, and that would give us a to the 9th. Okay, we're going to talk about those two missing parts in the chart on our next note sheet. So if we're taking a power of a power, so we're taking something to an exponent and we're raising it to another power, that means we need to multiply the exponents. So the biggest thing you know is even though it's not there, that 6 has a little mini exponent of 1. That's the same as 6 to the 1st power. So we can take that 2 and distribute it in, and we're going to multiply each exponent. So that's going to give us 6 squared. And then we're going to take and we're going to multiply 6 times 2, which is 12. Well, know that 6 squared is going to be 36, a to the 12. So that's that final answer. Last but not least, anything to the 0 power is going to equal 1. So no matter how big of a number you have, if that whole thing is being raised to the 0 power, then your answer is going to be 1, no matter how big it is. So let's take a look at this in action. So the first thing we want to notice is we want to talk about our x's. Okay, so it's kind of in a way like combining like terms. So something that helps me is if I see a letter and it doesn't have an exponent written, I like to go ahead and draw on a little 1 to remind myself that the exponent is 1. It's not 0. If that x were being raised to the 0 power, then the answer would be 1. So if there's no number written, the number that should be written is 1. So we need to combine our x's. So we're multiplying x to the 1st times x squared. Well, when we multiply those two together, we're going to add the exponents. We're going to take 1 plus 2, and that's going to give us 3. Okay, and this y to the 3rd is going to stay by itself. So if you are multiplying, you only worry about x's to x's, y's to y's. We don't need to worry about multiplying those two or adding any of their exponents because one's an x and one's a y. So actually, this right here would be your final answer. So let's take a look at number 2. So for number 2, I'm going to put a 1 by the 2 and a 1 by my x to remind me that each of those have an exponent of 1. So now I'm going to take that 4 and distribute it into each part. So 2, and then I'm raising it to the 1 times 4, which is 4. X, I'm raising to the 1 times 4, which is 4. Y, I'm raising to the 3 times 4, which is 12. Now we need to keep going and simplifying it out. I want you guys to actually calculate what 2 to the 4th is going to be. Well, that's the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 16. So we have 16 x to the 4th, y to the 12th. And that's your final answer. Everything is all simplified. We can't combine those x's and y's any further. So I want you guys to go and try number 3 on your own. I'm going to give you a hint. It should be a pretty quick problem. Okay, let's take a look at number 4. Now before I go and distribute this 2 in, I want to kind of simplify that inside a little bit. So the 6 is going to stay the same, but I can combine some x's. So again, to remind myself, if I see a letter without a number, I'm just going to put a little 1 to remind myself that it has an exponent of 1. So for my x's, I have x to the 3rd and x to the 1st. Well, 3 plus 1 is 4 when you add those exponents. Then I have y to the 1st times y to the 4th. 1 plus 4 is 5. Okay? Now, all of that is being raised to the 2nd power. So remember that 6 has an exponent of 1 on it. That's important to remember for when I'm distributing this 2 in. So when you take a power of a power, you need to multiply. So 6 to the 1st, so 1 times 2 is 2. So here I have 6 squared. X to the 4 times 2 is 8. Y to the 5 times 2 is 10. Okay? So now I want to go ahead and I want to add those two together. Okay? So now 6 squared is 36. 4, and then I'm going to keep the rest of these the same. Okay? So this right here would be my final answer for number 4. All right, next, let's take a look at number 5. So we're taking a power of a power of a power. which really isn't that difficult because when you take a power of a power of a power, you still multiply out your exponents. So this is really the same as 2 to the 3 times 2 times 2. Well, 3 times 2 is 6, times 2 is 12. So that's 2 to the 12th. So go ahead and figure out what 2 to the 12th is for me. That's taking 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 12 times. Or in your calculator, you could do 2, use a little caret key, and then to the 12th. Alright, I want you guys to go ahead and try number 6 on your own. Remember, you want to try those because those are the ones that are going to appear on your quizzes at the end of this video. So let's take a look at this chart here. So what is a monomial? We talked about this a little bit at the beginning. A monomial could be a number. It could be a variable, or it could be the product of the two of them. So monomials that are all real numbers are called constants. So this is the kind of stuff that we talked about on the first note video of this unit. So beneath there is a chart with some examples if you're having problems visualizing what I'm saying in that chart. But do jot some note down about monomials because that will help you in the future. Okay, so next, let's take a look at a properties of simplified monomials. So how do I know when I'm done simplifying? How do I know when I have nothing more that I need to do? Okay, so here are a couple things to look for. First of all, each box appears exactly once, each base. So we only have one letter A. We only have one letter X. We only have one constant. Okay, there are no powers of powers. We don't have A to the second to the third power. That's not simplified. And last but not least, all of our fractions are completely reduced. Once we can say all of those things are true, our monomials are completely simplified. So let's take a look at multiplying some monomials. So I'm taking 5x to the 7th times x to the 6th. Well, this is really the same thing that we were doing on the previous page. So we have a pretend coefficient of 1 outside of this x. Okay, so 5 times 1 is just going to be 5. Now for my x's, I need to add the exponents. So I have 7 plus 6, and that's going to give me 13 when I add those two exponents together. So next I want you guys to try number 8 on your own. Multiply coefficients, add exponents. I'm going to say that again. Multiply coefficients, those numbers on the outside, and add the exponents, the little numbers that are up top. Alright, let's take a look at this problem. So it looks intimidating, but we can do it. So let's take apart this guy right here to start off with. So first thing is I have negative 2y squared. So let's simplify that to start off with. So I'm going to have negative 2 squared and y squared. So I'm just writing that out separately. The reason why I'm writing it out separately is you need to remember when you take negative 2 and square it, that's negative 2 times negative 2. So that should end up being positive. So that's positive 4y squared. Now that still has to be raised to the third power, and then it needs to be multiplied by 3xy to the 4th. Well, before we can multiply those two, I need to simplify my products down a little more. So remember, I like to put in a little 1 when I'm talking about that 4 to the 1st power. So we have 3xy to the 4th. So now I need to take that 3 and I need to multiply the exponents. So then I have 4 to the 3rd and then y to the 2 times 3, which is 6. So then I need to go ahead and I can multiply these. So I can take 3 times 4 to the 3rd. Well, that's the same as 3 times 4 times 4 times 4. And when I multiply all of those together, I get 192. Well, there's no x's for my x to be multiplied by, so I'm going to keep that the same. And then I have this 4 and this 6, so both of those are with the y. So I need to go ahead and I need to add those exponents. So 4 plus 6 is 10. So that's my answer for number 9. Next, let's take a look at number 10. So we need to distribute in that property a little bit. So first thing I want to do is take this 3 and distribute it in. Well, this 1 and this 2 on the 1/2 each have a little 1 for the exponent. So really this is going to become 1 to the 3rd over 2 to the 3rd times a, and now we're going to multiply exponents. 3 times 2 is 6. This should be to the 3rd. Okay, b, 2 times 3 is 6. So let's work on simplifying this part down. So when I take negative 4 and square it, it's going to become positive 16. And this is the same as b to the 1st. 1 times 2 is 2. Now all of that is still being raised to the 2nd power. So let's simplify this down. Well, 1 cubed is just going to be 1. 2 to the 3rd is going to be 8. And then I have a to the 6th, b to the 6th. Okay, that parenthesis is fully simplified. I'm feeling good. So now I have 16 to the 1st. Okay, so now I need to take the 2 and I need to multiply it by each of those exponents. So 1 times 2 is 2, and then 2 times 2 for the b is going to be 4. So let's write out what we're going to be multiplying. So we have 1 over 8, a to the 6th, b to the 6th. 16 squared is 256, b to the 4th. So now I'm taking 256 times 1/8. That's really the same as 256 divided by 8. So that's going to give me 32. Now my a's don't have any other letters, so that's going to stay a to the 6th. And then I have b to the 6th times b to the 4th. Well, when we add those exponents, we get b to the 10th. So that right there is your final answer. Let's take a look at these last two word problems. So it says express the area of the square as a monomial. So to find the area of a square, we need to multiply length times width. So I'm going to take this times this. So I'm taking 4ab, and I'm going to be multiplying that by 4ab. So remember that each of these ab's have an exponent of 1 on them that we're going to need to add together. So 4 times 4 is 16. A to the first times a to the first. So we're going to go ahead and add those two exponents because we're multiplying their bases. That's going to give us a squared. B to the first times b to the first, add those two exponents, and that's going to give us b squared. And this right here is your simplified area. We can't combine those a's and those b's any further. All right, for number 12, express the area of the triangle as a monomial. So then area is equal to 1/2 length times width. So now we're still going to be multiplying the length times the width, but then we need to divide it by 2 once we're done. So we're taking 4a b to the 5th times 3a to the 4th b. And eventually we're going to be dividing that by 2. So what I like to do is anything without an exponent, I like to remind myself that it has an exponent of 1. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply my coefficients. 3 times 4 is 12. A to the first times a to the 4th. We're going to add those exponents and get a to the 5th. B to the 5th times b to the first. Add those exponents and get b to the 6th. And then we're going to divide that by 2. So when I'm dividing that by 2, all I'm really doing is taking 12 divided by 2. And that's going to give me 6. So then I have 6, a to the 5th, b to the 6th. And that is your final answer for the area. So that concludes your note video. Please make sure you take your Schoology quiz.